Alright, hola classmates. I'm going to be doing my persuasion speech today. First I'm going to introduce my crowd. We have, there they are. Those guys, let me tell you. Alright. What's the first thought that comes to mind when you see something like this? Maybe a Hollywood movie, maybe something like Pineapple Express, Half Baked, something Dave Chappelle related. Or maybe some kind of country that traffics these kind of drugs, maybe something like Colombia, Bolivia, Jamaica, Rastafarian kind of guys. Well, I'm here today to talk about a kind of different approach to it. We're talking about marijuana decriminalization. That means making cannabis legal for consumption. And our main objectives, main points that we're going to be hitting on are going to be the health benefits of the consumption, understanding the costs of illegality, and the benefits of decriminalization. And lastly, we're going to talk about how to deter one's use of marijuana, their liberty to use it is to deny one's autonomy, violation of the Bill of Rights. So first, let's talk about some of the medical benefits that are seen. Some of the main ones are going to be pain relief, relief for multiple sclerosis, inflammatory conditions are reduced when cannabis is consumed. And this can be seen in Crohn's disease. There's been many documented cases where once cannabis was ingested, inflammatory conditions did reduce themselves. Some of the more obvious ones are going to be appetite stimulation, which beyond the munchies, they have a lot of practical implications for people that maybe have reduced hunger because of a disease, cancer, anything, but they consume marijuana and then are able to have an appetite. And there we see a man that's got some, looks like he's got some stomach problems, but can relieve that pain with a little bit of cannabis. Also some big ones are the psychological disorders that it's able to be applied to. One of the main ones right now is going to be post-traumatic stress disorder. The American military is actually starting to prescribe Marinol, which is a THC containing pill, to individuals that have post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's seen a lot of beneficial aspects to that, where the disorder was able to kind of curtail itself and the individual healed more or less. Also, we have bipolar disorder. A big case that was done on this was in California for a little kid named JJ that he had multiple psychological disorders. Two of the main ones being post-traumatic stress and bipolar disorder. He was a very active kid, caused a lot of problems in class, was moved out of different schools. Saw about 20 or 30 different doctors, was prescribed close to 20 or 30 different pills, but none of them had any kind of longevity with the healing of his psychological disorder. So finally he had a doctor prescribe him Marinol, took it, and instantly within a week his behavior became a lot more relaxed. His learning ability increased exponentially, and he was actually, I think it was at the 2-week mark, he was teaching students, kind of acting as a tutor. So we saw a drastic improvement in his psychological health, and that can be contributed to the consumption of marijuana. And the new thing that's just coming out now is marijuana's fighting abilities toward cancerous tumors. This one's really interesting. It's actually seen to be able to suppress and destroy cancerous cells, and that's going to be anything from lung, thyroid, breast, prostate, numerous ones, where the tumor cells are actually seem to decrease in size and not proliferate anymore. And just a brief overview of how that's done. The THC actually produces this enzyme called ceramide that binds to the cancer cells, and then it produces a protein that the cancer cell interprets as food. So in turn, it eats itself. So it eats away towards eats away at the cancer cell. And the really interesting thing about this is it doesn't bind to non-cancerous cells, so it doesn't hurt healthy cells. And this is extremely beneficial when you think in the context of current cancer treatments. It can really kind of intrude on healthy cells. I mean, any kind of X-ray or what is it, chemotherapy, it kills a lot of healthy cells and harms the patient. Cannabis doesn't do that. And right here is this picture of 2 different patients. And as we can see, the green here is the cancerous cells, purple one, the normal cells, and this is pre-treatment. This is post-treatment, and we can see a huge decline in the first patient, 50%, and in the second patient, 40% reduction after, I think it was 3 months of consumption. Next, let's move on to the cost of the drug war. Estimated 7 to 10 billion a year spent to combat drugs, and that comes from incarceration, attorney fees, health care for the inmates, paying for their food, clothing. There's also the outside family, so anybody that's incarcerated, I mean, a lot of them have families on the outside that are going to have to look for external sources of income since they're providers being in prison. And any of the methods used to catch and deter marijuana use, DEA, stuff like that. That's where the majority of the cost comes from. But who fronts the bill? And that's going to be us, you and me, via tax dollars. So what are some of the immediate effects that decriminalization would have? We're going to free up billions of dollars. We're going to provide millions in taxable funds, and that's going to come from the distribution and production of marijuana. Similar to tobacco and alcohol, no real difference there. And it's going to eliminate the illegal markets that are contributed to illegal marijuana. So any of the illegalities and violence that we can trade with that market would be gone. But what kind of proof is there of this? And the main thing we're going to look at here is prohibition. In prohibition, alcohol consumption increased during prohibition, and violence also increased. About 2 weeks following the passing of the Volstead Acts, there's a 24% increase in violent crimes nationwide. And I mean, anytime we think of prohibition, we're going to think of guys like John Dillinger, Al Capone, some of the big pushers of alcohol during the time, and a lot of the violence inferred with that. And marijuana would be no different. We'd knock those markets out instantly if it was legalized. And another example in a different country would be Iceland. In 1989, they legalized consumption of alcohol. And following that, there was a lot of studies done during that time that were published post-1989 that found there wasn't any real kind of correlation between the legal consumption of alcohol and the negative health effects. So we didn't see like a sudden drastic spike in negative health effects following the legality of alcohol. And we can correlate that to the same thing with marijuana. And the last thing we're going to talk about is our own liberty, our right to consume marijuana, and that is guaranteed by our Bill of Rights in the 5th Amendment, and elaborated on the 14th Amendment, where it's granted to the states as well. And that clause in there is life, liberty, property, pursuit of happiness, and those will not be denied without due process of law. And in the context of marijuana use, we can just simply interpret liberty or pursuit of happiness being the consumption of marijuana for individuals that want to use it. And to deny that right is to deny our own constitutional right as guaranteed through the 5th and 14th Amendment. But let's think about this. You might be thinking right now, what is this guy trying to persuade us with? This sounds kind of mad right now. Right now, I'm saying if marijuana were legalized, you could potentially walk into a gas station or a Walmart and purchase marijuana. And in the context of what we're seeing right now, that's a level 1 narcotic available on the markets, and it could degrade social wellness, social welfare, and just not be good for our youth or even for those able to purchase it. And the rebuttal to that market is just look at tobacco and alcohol. It's going to be a heavily regulated market. There's going to be rules, ages, just like there is with alcohol and tobacco. And with those two substances being legal right now, I mean, we don't see people running the streets wild consuming these substances. I mean, maybe in some areas we do, but for the most part we don't. And also, the main thing here is going to be we're going to have our schools provide educational resources to talk about marijuana. Beyond those that are available right now is the DARE program, which is what I was given in school, and it was a nationwide program, are really a failure, and they don't provide adequate information for those that are curious about the substance. So we need our parents and schools to provide good documentation, good education to educate individuals about these substances, to make an informed decision about it for themselves. So a recap, we talked about the medical benefits, the many uses for marijuana that are still not all understood and still being explored. We talked about the malproductive nature of illegality and the positive potential for decriminalization, and the necessity to uphold the right for one's autonomy and liberty as granted through our Bill of Rights. So what now? The main things we can do now is, write our senators or representatives, those that make these laws and pass them, continue to educate ourselves about this, and learn more about the applications of marijuana. Read up, read more about it, and see. I mean, every day there's new documents being published about this, and try to make a positive change in a world, especially in America, where change is needed right now. All right, and that's going to conclude my brief. If we have any questions, we're going to turn it to the audience now and see if they have anything to say. Audience?
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to ask was, why would, if it does all this, we know all these medical benefits that, helps people with cancer and Crohn's disease and all these different things, and that it actually doesn't have a negative effect on the human body. Why was it illegalized in the first place?
All right. Excellent question from our audience member. The best answer we can give to that right now is that, first off, when it was made illegal back initially in 1937, and then following further regulations in the 70s, but there wasn't really any kind of research into the subject. There wasn't anything really known about it. And right now, one of the main things we're seeing, especially in the medical field, is that there are such tremendous benefits to the consumption of marijuana that it's better than a lot of the substances that the pharmaceutical industry can give out. And it kind of intertwined in the pharmaceutical industry is a lot of profit. And if marijuana was to become available, it's going to knock those pharmaceutical companies potentially out of business. And right now they're the ones funding a lot of the regulations, funding, lobbying in DC against marijuana legalization. So that's one of the best answers we can see right now.
All right. I guess another question. You were talking a little bit about Marinol. What's the difference really between Marinol and actual marijuana to begin with? And if marijuana is a natural substance to begin with, why would they be prescribing Marinol, which is obviously made by pharmaceutical companies?
All right. Well, as far first to answer the question about this chemical differences between Marinol and marijuana substance, Marinol is just synthetic THC. It only contains THC or CBC, like cannabinoids, because there's a lot of different compounds in marijuana. So they'll isolate one different one. In Marinol, it's THC, and different. I forget some of the names for some of the other different marijuana pills, but they'll isolate different compounds. And as far as why the pharmaceutical industry has it and what's the difference between them, taking advantage of marijuana and just producing a pill, honestly, right now it's tough to say. That might be the route that it might take. One would hope not, but I could definitely see them taking advantage of it in the future. But you have to think as well, if marijuana is legal, that means one can produce the own plants. So then if you grow your own, then you don't even need to purchase the pill. So you can go that route.
That completely take out all the costs of manufacturing the Marinol, as well as breaking it down with all the chemicals and pharmaceutical. With the pharmaceutical industry, it would just be much cheaper and more cost efficient to grow marijuana yourself anyways, right? Yes,
that would be very true. But probably then it just goes on the back of the individual. They're probably banking on a lot of people aren't going to want to produce the pill or produce the plant. They don't have the time or whatever. So they know there's going to be profit in it, so they'll go after it. All right. Well, that concludes the brief. I'm out of time. Adios.